Welcome to the Leadership Buzz with Lloyd Buzz Buzzle, ICF credentialed coach and retired Air Force officer. This podcast is for leaders who want to align behavior with values and grow in self-awareness. Each episode, one book, one idea, one story, and 3 coaching questions. Work hard, tell the truth. Here's Buzz.
One person can make a difference. I've seen it too many times to ignore. Same team, same mission, same pressure. And then one leader shows up differently and everything changes. People speak up more, they take ownership, they bring better ideas. Not because the team changed, but because the leader did. Some leaders feel like they have to have all the answers. Others create the condition where everyone else can step up. And that's where the difference is made. TJ, tell us the book that we're talking about this week.
Today on The Leadership Buzz, what kind of leader are you creating around you? In the book Multipliers, How the Best Leaders Make Everyone Smarter, Liz Wiseman makes a bold claim. Some leaders make people around them smarter, more capable, and more confident, while others unintentionally shut that down. The difference isn't talent, it's how they lead. One leader can double the capability of a team or cut it in half. So the question is simple. Are you multiplying the people around you or diminishing them? Let's roll.
All right, let's get into it. Let me ask you something. Have you ever worked for a leader where you just stopped talking? Not because you didn't care or you didn't have ideas, but because it just wasn't worth it. They had the answer, they moved fast, and they controlled everything. So you just sit there and you waited. That's what Multipliers calls a diminisher. And here's the hard truth. A lot of good leaders sometimes fall into this. Not because they're bad people, but because they're capable, smart, they've earned the position, and they know what right looks like. So they just jump right in. They answer quickly and fix things and take control. And in the moment, it feels like leadership. But let me say this directly. When you always have the answer, you train your team not to think. Now let's talk for a second. If you're the leader in the room and people aren't speaking up, that's not a team problem, that's a leadership signal. Multipliers do this a little different. They don't lead by having all the answers, they lead by pulling answers out of other people. They ask, wait, and expect people to step up. Yeah, it's slower at first and it's uncomfortable because now you're not the one carrying everything. And I know you have to get results. That's what this is all about, is getting results. So one multiplier that I'm familiar with is a guy named Bobby Orr. He played defense for the Boston Bruins. When he was a very young guy playing youth hockey up in Ontario, the Bruins went up there and signed him to a contract, which is crazy to think that that would be allowed back then, but it was. The Bruins were terrible. They were the last ones in the league, and this was in the mid-'60s. The first year he showed up, the team did just as bad, maybe even worse. It wasn't a very good team. It was struggling, but he didn't wait for things to get better. He made them better. He actually revolutionized the position he played at because defensemen at the time didn't really carry the puck up ice. But he created offense, and he saw the ice differently than everyone else. He always said the best defense was a strong offense. If they had the puck, how could they score against us? And that's really what happened around him that made it better. Players played with more confidence, they moved differently, and elevated their game. That's what a multiplier does. They eventually won 2 Stanley Cups, should have won a third, in the early 1970s, and transformed ice hockey in Massachusetts forever. Those multipliers raise everyone. Now let me give you the flip side of this coin, because I've seen that too. It was part of a unit where a leader came in and took over, and at first was fantastic. He was sharp, experienced, knew the mission, and was very excited to be part of that mission, and did a really good job at first. And on paper, he should have been great. But the way he led people, he shut them down, and he didn't have the answer all the time. He corrected everything. He didn't create that space or listen, and you could feel it. The room got tight and tense. There was a lot of tension in that unit. People stopped offering input. They stopped pushing back. They weren't enjoying themselves, and they really stopped thinking out loud. And here's the part most people don't talk about. The team didn't just disengage, they started resisting quietly at first, then probably more openly, until it got to a point where the leader couldn't lead the team anymore, and he had to be removed. Now, to think about that didn't happen just overnight. That's not one bad day. That's a pattern, and that's what happens when a leader consistently diminishes the people around them. You don't just lose engagement, you start losing trust, and when you lose trust and the trust is gone, then the leadership is gone. So let me ask you again. When you walk into a room, do people lean in or do they just hold back? Because there is a difference. Those multipliers create energy and diminishers drain it. I've seen leaders shift this, and it doesn't start with some big leadership program. It starts in moments. Someone brings you a problem, then right there you have a choice. You can say, here's what we're going to do, or maybe you can pause and ask, what do you think? And now what some of you are thinking is, I don't have time for that. I already know the answer. Let's just move. I get it. I've been there. But let me tell you what happens when you always do that. You kind of become the bottleneck. Everything runs through you, and your team never grows past you. Multipliers think differently. They're willing to slow it down just enough so the team can speed up later. They're willing to let someone struggle so they can learn. And they're willing to not be the smartest voice in the room all the time so that that room gets smarter. This is sometimes ties into something else, silence. If you're leading a meeting and it goes quiet, what do? Do you have a tendency to fill it or do you hold it? Because a lot of times your team is just going to let you say whatever you want and listen in and not interrupt you. But silence isn't empty. It's information. It might be hesitation. It might be disagreement. It might be something deciding if it's safe to speak. Multipliers don't assume they go after it. Hey, what are we missing? Someone see this differently? Who is it? What's the concern we're not talking about? That's leadership, not control or dominance, but creating a space where people can think and speak. Let's bring this back down again, because this is where it really gets real. You don't become a multiplier by accident. You become one by choosing over and over again to bring something out of people. Instead of proving something to them, you bring that out of them. And that's not easy. I know it isn't, especially if you've built your career on being capable and getting those results quickly and on being right and having the answers. But at some point, leadership shifts. It's not about what you can do. It's about what you can build in others and bring out of the team. And if you get that right, everything changes. Team gets stronger, faster, and they really own more. And you're not carrying it all alone anymore. At the end of the day, leadership isn't about being the smartest person in the room. It's about building a room that's smarter because you're in it. One person can make a difference. And if you're the leader, that person can be you. Not because you do more, but because you bring more out of others. There's a lot of good stuff in Liz Wiseman's book, The Multipliers, but I just want to highlight a couple of things. She says sometimes the good guys are the bad guys. You know, the diminishers appear to be tyrannical, narcissistic bullies, but what kind of happens is this bad side of the multiplier, the diminisher, comes out, who's kind of an accidental diminisher. That leader keeps getting rewarded for bad habits and treating the team badly. They're getting results. They're getting the team to do what they need to do. And the bosses think they're great. And so they keep getting rewarded for that. So they keep repeating that in every place they go. And that's kind of where bad things can happen for the team right there. And the diminisher is kind of a know-it-all who really just gives directives. And the multiplier is a challenger who defines opportunities. From Liz Wiseman's book, she talks about the mind of the multiplier that holds very different assumptions. They see this world very differently. The multiplier see it in technicolor, while a diminisher might see it in black and white. They just assume that people are smarter and they're going to figure it out. And that these smart people are everywhere who are going to figure that out and get even smarter in the process. And if you kind of think of your team like that, you're going to get people increasing their output. Really, the disciplines of these multipliers that Wiseman talks about are that they attract more talented people, and then they use them where they can be contributing the most, and that they create an intense environment that requires people best thinking and work while giving them that opportunity that causes people to really stretch. They drive sound decisions through just rigorous debate, through a debate maker. Then the investor also gives other people ownership for results and invests in their success, where they're getting just multiple times the results over and over again from their team, instead of the assumption of the diminishers that people won't figure it out if they don't have them around. So if she or he is just thinking that all the time, that I have to be there to try and figure this out, that they're trying to empire build, or they're a tyrant, or they just know it all and they just make all the decisions. They're very centralized, and then ends up micromanaging. The result is they started getting less than half or 50% of what the output of the team could be doing for them. In Liz Wiseman's book, they make a few surprising findings about multipliers, that they have a hard edge, that they expect great things from people and drive them to extraordinary results. So it's just not that they're soft about it. They don't play small. People often assume that these leaders have to step aside in order to shine a spotlight on others. That's not what they found. They found that they're using all their capabilities and all their intelligence to bring people forward. In addition, what they found was that multipliers had a great sense of humor. And that's a trait prominent among multipliers, but it's one of the traits that most negatively correlated with the mindset held by diminishers. They felt that having a great sense of humor was not conducive to being a great leader. And perhaps maybe one of the greatest surprises that they found about diminishers, that diminishers didn't understand that the restrictive impact that they were having on everybody and their team's growth, that they didn't really know what they were influencing by being this accidental diminisher. They were well-meaning, great people who were underutilizing their people despite having the best intentions.
Coach Buzz, what are some themes that people will find in Liz Wiseman's book, The Multipliers?
Some key central messages from the book are that diminishers underutilize people and leave capability on the table, while multipliers increase intelligence in people and in organizations. People actually get smarter and more capable around them. Meanwhile, multipliers leverage their resources. Companies can get 2 times more from their resources by turning their most intelligent resources into intelligent multipliers. I would let this sit with you for a minute and think about it. Probably a great reflection on how you think you are being seen by your team. What if you left tomorrow? Would people be happy with that, or would they be upset? Sometimes, according to Liz Wiseman, becoming that multiplier may just be becoming less of a diminisher. Usually means doing less, and that's less talking, less responding, less convincing, and just trying to rescue others who need to struggle for themselves and try and figure things out. Ronald Reagan said the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets people to do the greatest things.
Buzz, do you have any final thoughts today?
Hey, thanks for the feedback and listening to these episodes. We're on our 13th episode and still learning how to produce this and put this together and make it meaningful and useful for everybody listening in. We want leaders to get something out of this. So please continue to give that amazing feedback. I really appreciate it. I am really paying attention to what you have to say to me. I want to make sure this is especially important to listeners and leaders, and they're getting something out of it. We'll have a couple of announcements next episode, but in particular, we're putting together a bonus episode right now, and then we're going to put together a project based around coaching that I think you'll find interesting, and I hope that you'll listen in on that and that you'll get something out of it. We're trying to make this useful for both leaders, listeners, and everybody that listens in on a weekly basis. So I appreciate it, and keep those notes coming in, and I will look for those and answer every single thing that shows up.
Coach Buzz, can you give us this week's 3 coaching questions for our listeners?
For this week's 3 coaching questions, first one is, tell me about a time when you brought out the best in someone on your team. What did you do and how did that impact them? Next, how does your leadership show up in moments when you don't have the answer? What do you tend to do, and what effect does that have on others? And finally, describe how you create space for others to think and contribute. What does that look like in your day-to-day leadership?
That's Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. Wiseman shows that the difference between great leaders and average ones isn't intelligence, it's how they use it. Multipliers bring out the best in others. They challenge people, create space for thinking, and build real ownership. Diminishers, often unintentionally, shut that down by doing the thinking for everyone. The result? Multipliers get nearly twice the capability from their teams. One leader can make a difference by how they show up every day. Buzz, take us home.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Buzz. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you have a moment, leave a rating or review. That helps other leaders discover the show. If these kinds of leadership questions resonate with you and you'd like to explore them more deeply, feel free to reach out to me. Coaching conversations often start exactly this way. Until next time, work hard, tell the truth.